What's up, guys? Back again to the subreddit that, well, quite frankly, is probably more intense than we want to hear sometimes. r/NuclearRevenge. Got another 3 stories lined up and ready to go. First, we got a developer who's been screwed over by his ex-boss, so hear how he gets his sweet revenge. Next, we got a bully who definitely gets what's coming to him. And finally, we've got a best friend turned sex offender who ends up spending the next 5 years in prison. But of course, make sure you stick around to the very end because we got our bonus section as well, and it's a good one. Alright, see you in a bit. You pay for it, one way or another. Our story is from years ago. I used to do work for some kind of full stack agency as a coder, doing websites, desktop applications, and integrations for customers. Life was good, and it got even better. After managing to provide an important customer with 5-star hotels all around my country, with a great website with integration to ERP and also mobile solutions, which didn't exist back then in my country, a headhunter found me. He offered nearly triple the salary I was getting, and it was impossible to say no to that. I informed my employer, gave him a generous notice of a month so I can wrap up my last projects. Let me warn you that I was very young and an incredibly trusting person then. When my employer told me there were some kind of problems and I'd have to receive my last salary with the next one, I accepted. Last day of my job, when he asked me to sign the paper that declares I had nothing indebted to me by that company, I signed it. I was a moron. I was young. They never paid me, of course. Even though being stiff that way was a lump in my throat, I tried to gulp it down. I worked hard at my new job, trying to prove that I could do better than I did before. But another sneak attack from my ex-employers was the last drop. One day, I arrived at my job. My new employer called me to his room. He explained to me that my ex-employer reached to him and told him that I was lazy, a liar, worthless, and it wasn't worth the effort to have me as an employee because they were going to sue me, so I wouldn't be able to do any work with all the legal stuff. I was beet red. I apologized for being a nuisance and said I'd clear my desk instantly. He laughed cheerfully and said, "You've been working for me for 2 weeks. You've completed 2 high-quality websites and half of a desktop app. I'll cut my own throat before I fire you." Still, I was so shaken that he had to give me permission to leave early. It was Friday anyway. I went home and cried. Not because of sorrow, but rage. I couldn't touch them. I couldn't. That's the day I fired up Google and typed "how to hack" for the first time in my life. The first response was a forum in my native language. I started reading, and gosh, it had a lot to read. Coding and hacking are, even though they share the same expertise, vary so much when it comes to the details. I confess, it was impossible for me to think like them. But thankfully, the forum crawled with helpful technical tutorials telling me the hows and whys of every exploit I could use. As I said, I was young and a moron. Back then I had my own mini admin framework that I used in every website, which I made, and I realized that there was one crucial mistake. I made in calls to create new records, use pages, new items, galleries, and everything. I wasn't checking the authentication at all. It would be near impossible for a hacker to use this because he wouldn't know how to or get exposed to the exact call. But I knew it. It was 6 a.m. when I finished reading. I used public transportation to go all the way to the other end of the city. I found an internet cafe where the young attendant didn't care about IDs and which didn't have any security cameras. I sat in a corner and started to break every single website I made for them. There was one about pastry materials, a website consisting of over 1,000 ingredients. In the main page, a random assortment of each ingredient type would be shown as a gallery. I replaced about 20 of them with an image of, human waste. Only 20, so a viewer who got used to it wouldn't realize there was an error until some time has passed. I made the chief physician of a hospital page the angel of death itself, with images and a special bio. People don't look into physicians' bio pages, so I was sure it wouldn't be found out for long. I made an announcement in an ultra-nationalist party, A's website, that their number one enemy would be giving a speech in the local newspaper. and I made all old videos instead linked to a famous Lotoma video where an anime girl spins a leek in her hand. Slowly, a few websites a day, I broke every single website I made for them, approximately 6 websites or so. The backlash from customers seemed to have been furious and a domino effect. He lost his customers, trust, and references, which simply means everything for this kind of job. Once, the proud owner of one of the best agencies in the region now tries to work in a tiny office, making a living doing third-rate websites with his meager skill. Even though I never met him during this period, one of my friends was working under him until the last moment. I loved listening to his struggle to find out how I did it. They knew I did it. They just had no way of proving it, while losing more and more customers every day from my friend. I don't know if this best suits the phrase nuclear, but at least the cold satisfaction I get whenever I walk past his tiny office these days may be considered nuclear. I don't understand why this boss tried to ruin his life for bettering himself. If you needed him that much, if you liked him that much or whatever, offer him more money, but don't just ruin his life. Bully me for 5 years? Enjoy being blind. Okay, so when I was in 1st grade, some guy moved to my school. We'll call him P. P was a tall, thin guy. He liked to bully me verbally and sometimes would hit me. This revenge started in the 5th grade. I have always had anger issues, so when I got angry, it was extreme, and sometimes it would take up to 5 teachers to hold me down. So after P did a particularly jerk move on me, I snapped. But this time, it was different. I let the rage build up inside of me, and when class ended, I waited for him to bully me a little bit more. After a while, he shoved me to the ground. I got up and looked at him with the most rage I'd ever had. I punched him in the face, but I missed, and I got his eye so hard his retina detached, and he proceeded to fall to the ground crying, "Ooh." And I got suspended for a week, but didn't get in too much trouble because the school considered it self-defense. His retina got damaged, and when the surgeon tried to reattach it, he is now blind in one eye. TLDR, got bullied for about 5 years, punched the guy in the eye so hard his retina got detached, and the surgery went wrong. He is now blind in one eye. I actually kind of feel bad for the bully. I mean, I know it wasn't intentional to blind him when you punched him, but that's a pretty extreme punishment for what happened. Betray my trust? Have fun being a sex offender for life. In high school, I met someone my freshman year who would end up becoming my best friend by the end of the year, Frank. We weren't outcasts, but we weren't exactly popular kids either. We were the metalhead kids who hung out in the wood shop and had a small circle of friends. Every high school has these groups, just the hangout area changes. Frank's dad was out of the picture, and his stepdad, I thought, was an a-hole. But looking back, he was just trying to stop Frank from being a total screw-up, and consistently told him that once he turned 18 and graduated high school, he was out of the house. Like I said at the start, come senior year, Frank was by far my closest friend. Every weekend, we hang out and play Smash Bros, or sneak into the movies to see what random horror flicks was out. I wasn't gonna let my best friend end up on the streets, and my family owns a big house with a couple extra bedrooms, so of course, he can come live with us while he figures out what he's gonna do with his life. Living in my house back then was me, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, and my younger cousin we'll call YC. YC was about 5 years younger, so she was 13 when Frank moved in. Frank is a year older than me, so he was 19. My cousin lived with me all my life, so she was more like a little sister to me, and we'd let her watch movies with us and hang out. It was known that she had a crush on Frank, but I never thought anything of it. He had a girlfriend in high school, and seemed to have the normal attraction to pretty girls his own age, or close to it. I had started college by this time, and had just gotten a part-time job. Frank was taking some BS classes at a local junior college, but otherwise not doing crap. But again, he was my best friend, so I just let him figure it out. A lot of people take a year off high school to just figure it out. One weekend, about 3 months after him having moved in, me, him, and a few other friends went to an Iced Earth show and were having a blast in the pit. Frank took a break and was just standing on the outside of the pit when a guy who had at least 400 pounds got knocked back and fell right onto Frank's knees. ACL torn right off. Frank had to have surgery and was basically going to be off his feet for a while. YC pampered him and would bring him food and anything else he needed, and was basically his own personal maid. This is the part where I feel shame because I let this happen, mainly because I didn't want to be the one doing it. Of course, with how much time YC was in his room and spending time with him, friends and family started to talk, but both would of course deny it and act like how could anyone even think that, and generally shame you for even bringing it up. This was back when cell phones were a thing, but not everyone had them. Frank had one because his mom wanted to be able to talk to him whenever since he got the injury, and my cousin had one because her mom treated her more like a friend than a daughter and got her everything she wanted. Both of them had the old Nokias. One day, our mainland phones were dead, and I had to make a phone call. This was back when our teachers would still take your phone away, so my cousin left hers at home while she was at school. When I picked up the phone, I could see she had 10 texts, all from Frank. I understood they'd gotten close, but 10 texts back then was a bit much. So of course, I looked at what he had texted her. Months and months worth of "I love you and can't wait to see you. No one will be home at this time. Everyone is asleep. Come sneak in." I saw red. I was furious. If Frank had been home, I probably would have beat him till I couldn't feel my hands anymore. Instead, he was at a doctor's appointment with his mom, and I punched a hole in my closet. After stupidly nearly breaking my hand, I calmed down and thought about it. If I beat him up, so what? He'll heal. And if I call the cops, my cousin would just deny everything. And even with the texts, it doesn't prove they were having sex. Everyone in my family has a Christmas party, like a week before Christmas. We rotate houses, and this year, it was my great aunts who lived an hour away, and my cousin already said she was going to stay home this year. Luckily, this was only a couple weeks away. Those 2 weeks were torture, and I had to pretend like there was nothing wrong. Mainly, I just avoided him and her. If I actually hung out with either one of them, I think I would have just flown off the handle. Come to the day of the party, I tell my family, and I take my own car because I need to go to the store and pick up a few things. Mom, aunt, and grandma, I guess, take off in one car. Cousin and Frank stay home. I actually do go to the store because it has a payphone right next to it and proceed to call the cops. I do realize I'm gambling here. I have no idea if they'll be caught in the act or not, but it was worth the risk to me. I drive back to my house and wait for the cops to pull up, which takes around 5 minutes. 2 cops pull up, and I explain to them what I think is going on, the texts I saw, and give them permission to enter the house and search the premise. When we enter the house, I grossly find out my cousin is very vocal. Ooh, didn't need to know that. And the cops rush to the room, open his door, and there is YC straddling Frank. 20 minutes of screaming and crying later, Frank is in handcuffs and being taken away by 2 police officers. My cousin is calling me every name in the book because she, of course, she loves him and I ruined her life. I can't say I didn't feel a little bad. I know I did the right thing, but when someone who's like a little sister to you saying those things, it does make you start to doubt a little bit. Frank ended up being charged with aggravated sexual assault of a child, unlawful intercourse with a minor, and forcible acts of sexual penetration. The first one can actually be a life sentence, but he had no criminal record and obviously wasn't going to trial, so he did get a pretty good plea deal. Was sentenced to 15 years, but ended up doing 5, like the title says, though he is forever labeled a sexual offender and a felon. My cousin hated me for years, but eventually started going to therapy and realized what happened to her was wrong, and she has since forgiven me. I mean, it's just unfortunate his sentencing was cut down from 15 years to just 5. I wish it would have been a lot more of a harsh punishment. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed today's few stories. Now like usual, let's switch gears and head right into the bonus section, which today is going to be r/choosing beggars. Let's do it.
Hey uncle, it's Choosing Beggar.
Hi Choosing Beggar, what's up? How's the new house?
It's good, but it's missing something.
Oh yeah? What's that?
AirPods in my ears. And my birthday is coming up.
Haha, sneaky. How about some Chinese off-brand knockoffs?
Just giving you a little hint of what I want. Wink. Hehehehe. Do you think you can get them for me?
They're a pretty expensive gift. Do you know anyone else that might want to go halvesies?
Mom or other uncle? Hey, I'll probably just send those back to you.
Uh-oh, what's wrong with them?
They don't even fit my ears because they're so big. They are fake.
Okay, sorry about that. Figure they would still fit and work.
Nope. You could have just said no if you didn't want to buy the real things. You got my hopes up.
I never said I was gonna buy them. I told you they were very expensive.
Then you should have just said no.
I don't know why people are hating on Chinese knockoff brands. I mean, I've got a pair of them and they work pretty good. Cheap haircuts are not good. Good haircuts are not cheap. Now this man has dealt with a choosing beggar or two in his lifetime.
Hello, is the PC you were selling still available?
Yep, the asking price is $500. I can negotiate a little though.
I have $100. Is that enough? I could give you my Fortnite account if you wanted. Please, please, please.
I could do $450, and I don't play Fortnite, lol.
F you then. I'll cut my wrist and think of your
What?
I'll cut my wrists and think of your family tonight.
Damn, this dude knows how to ramp up the intensity in no time flat. Jesus. Alright guys, and with that, we are gonna wrap it up for the day. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you again next time. Peace out.